It is already quite clear with the beginning of this arc that Boruto's plan will completely backfire on him, and it's going to happen in a way that none of us expected. And this has everything to do with what Kashinkoji told Boruto as his final message. But to understand how all of this will come into place, we first have to really get a good grasp of Boruto's plan, because the plan is actually pretty simple. Code is going to come and try and take Sarada as a hostage, and what Sarada is supposed to do is to simply let that happen. Sarada will be captured by Code, and Code will bring her to the 10,000th dimension. This is going to take place obviously using the claw marks. She will be in the village, and there has already been multiple claw marks placed around the village as Boruto has told us, and thus it will make it easy for Code to come in and come out with Sarada. Then, when Sarada and Code reach the Shinju dimension, Boruto told Sarada to throw the signs and symbols that Boruto ended up giving her somewhere around the dimension, so that Boruto can then teleport to reach that dimension himself. This is essentially the plan that Boruto has come up with. So exactly what is going to be taking place next? We could see this plan serve two different purposes. One option is that Boruto's current plan is simply to find out where the Shinju dimension is. By using Code as a vehicle to get Sarada to go to that dimension, Boruto will end up figuring out where the Shinju dimension is. He ends up teleporting to that dimension, takes Sarada out of that dimension with him, and then he will have an accurate place where he can go to at a later date to potentially ambush the Shinju alongside Kawaki, or to have their full-on assault on Jura maybe when Hidari is taken out. This could be the potential purpose that this plan that Boruto has come up with would serve. The second option is that no, this isn't to do with simply finding the location of the Shinju dimension. It is to find the location of the Shinju dimension and then have Boruto ambush them, which will lead to either the separation of Hidari and Jura so that Hidari could be taken out, or a one-on-one situation where Sarada ends up fighting versus Hidari and Boruto ends up stalling for time while Sarada potentially takes Hidari out. So Boruto would be the decoy for Jura, where he potentially ends up setting up some sort of a plan so that Sarada and Hidari has a one-on-one and Sarada ultimately comes victorious. This is the potential second option that we could go with. And obviously, this second option could include people like Kawaki, Mitsuki, anybody that Boruto would like to bring alongside him to hold out for Sarada and Hidari to have this one-on-one. So those are the two routes and situations that we can find ourselves in. However, when we really come to analyze both situations, we really only see that one option is really probable. Because when we break it down, the first option has multiple different problems. The first problem is Boruto's Flying Raijin and how we have seen that it works. When Boruto ends up using the Flying Raijin, it requires him to have a lot of concentration, which is why it takes him time to teleport to other dimensions that are simply not in this world. We saw this when Boruto was trying to go to the 10,000th dimension, which is where the Shinju first appeared to be at. Even simply talking, like Kashinkoji was talking to Boruto, it was enough for Boruto to have to tell him to stop talking so that he can concentrate and reach there. And if that is the case, it's going to be very hard for Boruto to concentrate enough when he reaches that dimension with Hidari, with Code, and with Jura, all of those people there. Jura, who wants to take out Boruto, and Hidari, who wants to take out Sarada, is going to be very hard for Boruto to concentrate and just appear and disappear as fast as possible. I don't think that is a very probable move at all. Maybe if Boruto was there alone, he could potentially do that, but the fact that he would have to take Sarada out too at the same time would make it quite improbable to take place. And the only other time we've seen it work was when Boruto was literally trapped between Matsuri and all the other Shinju dimension, and Jura lets us know, even when Boruto was able to escape at that point, that the only reason he was able to do so is because Jura let him. He says that his curiosity surpasses instincts to kill him. That's why Boruto was able to escape, and that eventually they would come to meet out. And this is what I believe will be the case in this upcoming arc, where it's going to definitely take place where Boruto will have to fight versus Jura. This tells me that the option 1 of this being a simple mission and plan to find out where the Shinju dimension is not likely to be the case. This is not the only reason why they're going there. It's not a pop in and pop out. It's going to be a mission where we find the Shinju dimension and then we actively go and ambush the Shinju. And I believe that it is during this ambush that everything will go wrong. I believe that the first half will be successful, but there are too many problems, on top of the fact that we no longer can rely on Kashin Koji's future seeing abilities, where depending on what happens with Kashin Koji, as he has been taken over by Amada, we might not be able to trust him, or he might not even be available to be used. Boruto might go and realize that Kashin Koji is not there, and since Boruto also is no longer as trusting to Kashin Koji, there are just too many different reasons why this Boruto and Kashin Koji problem is just going to be exacerbated in this specific context, where it's going to be even harder for their partnership to work. But that's not even the plot twist that I am mentioning. The big reason why I believe that a lot of things will end up going differently than Boruto may have planned it is because I believe that it is during this arc and during the time that Boruto makes his way there that we will have Jura reveal something extremely important. And that is that Jura will betray Code, or at least change his mind. And this comes into the biggest factor of why Code has an alliance with Jura. It is due to the fact that at the end of the day, Code does what Jura wants, and then Jura will produce for him a chakra fruit. But what I think will happen is the opposite. Jura will want to create the chakra fruit for himself. This has actually already been hinted towards. The fact of Jura asking this question to Code himself. What do you think would happen if we, the Shinju, ended up eating the chakra fruit for ourselves? Which means that it is a genuine possibility of that taking place, that a potential divine tree is created and Jura at the end still ends up eating the chakra fruit. That is very interesting. And this isn't the only hint, as one thing that has become very apparent is the connection between Jura and Hidari. And one thing that is extremely intriguing when it comes to Hidari is the fact of his basic ideology when it comes to wanting to devour Sarada. We obviously know the love connection between Sasuke and Sarada, the fact that it is a demonstration of parental love. And that parental love that Sasuke feels for his daughter is what is ultimately causing Hidari to target Sarada. But that is not the only reason why in the first place we have a Hidari who wants to devour Sarada. That plays a point into it, but it's not the only driver. Another driver that we hear from Hidari is the fact that he wants to understand himself. And what is being made quite clear with his philosophy and the way he wants to go about devouring Sarada is that he wants to understand more about himself by consuming the things around him. By consuming the world around him, Hidari believes that he will be able to find out who he truly is. He asks Sarada who exactly Sarada is, to truly understand what he will gain after devouring her. That is the purpose, that is one of the primary drivers for Hidari trying to eat Sarada. It all is for better understanding. Now when it comes to the chakra fruit itself, the chakra fruit contains the living DNA of an entire planet. So how best to learn about the world around you than to devour it itself? And that may be a conclusion that Jura himself ends up coming to, which would be another reason why Jura and Hidari's bond is quite special, because they have come up to a similar conclusion. This is the reason. This also explains why the bond between Jura and the Shinju is not the same. we have a Mamushi that comes to the conclusion that he wants to dominate over the world. But Jura doesn't come to that same conclusion. He actually comes up with a different conclusion. He says that it is very animalistic and a sign of lower intelligence, as that is a simple instinct that these lower creatures have, the instinct to reproduce, create more, so that their species can stay alive. That is the instincts that almost every single animal has, and the whole fact of going against those instincts to come up with your own conclusions is ultimately what is a sign of higher intelligence, especially in humans. We have various instincts, some that can be malicious, but because of the social order that we have created and our personal intelligence, we end up going above those instincts to come to our own personal conclusions and our own personal morality. And that is one of the primary reasons why Jura doesn't align with Mamushi. However, we see a connection between Jura and Hidari, and this may be one of the reasons why. And if that is the case, Code can no longer work with Jura, as Jura is attempting to take the one thing that Code really wants, and that is the chakra fruits. And this is where everything simply ties in with Kashin Koji. Kashin Koji tells us something important, that there is a small chance that Code ends up switching sides and ends up joining Boruto. We ended up seeing that Code didn't join Boruto at that specific moment, and all of us never really understood why. Why would Code ever join Boruto? But this would make sense. If Jura is actively trying to eat the chakra fruits, then it makes it even more probable for Code to end up having to join Boruto regardless of his personal feelings. And this has already been foreshadowed in the past, and I'll definitely make a video specific to this, but to dive onto this a little bit deeper, we can already see in chapter 4 that Boruto and Code were going to end up working together. The only reason why they didn't is because Code believed that it was highly probable that even if he left Boruto there, they would ultimately just come to create a chakra fruit, and at the end of the day, he could come and snatch it. Now that this promise is removed with this potential theory, it would then make sense as to why Code ends up joining Boruto. And with that revelation, we could actively see a 2v1 or potentially 3v1 between Jura, Boruto, Code, and Kawaki. This would be an amazing fight, and it would ultimately give us time for a Sarada versus Hidari fight that could ultimately take place, just as we ended up seeing in that future scene. And this is why I'm saying that what we're going to be seeing in this arc is slowly going to shape what we end up seeing in that future scene. Everything is destroyed. A lot of things are going wrong. Kawaki is definitely going to have a fight soon due to the simple fact that he ended up getting this massive upgrade. And if Code ends up switching sides, we could realistically see this being one of the probable ways that Jura is taken out. Potentially, it is in this arc that we come to figure out what will happen to Jura. This could be really one of the final battles that we see. It all ultimately depends on how many people Boruto ends up taking to go and save Sarada after she is brought as a hostage. So you guys definitely let me know what you guys are theorizing at this moment. What do you guys believe to be highly probable? But the biggest key in this entire battle is what exactly is going to happen between Hidari and Sarada. This is going to be the most important part, as this is ultimately what is going to cause Jura to grow and become stronger. So to understand more about the hidden philosophies when it comes to Sarada versus Hidari, you have to watch this video right here.